My name is Ann Tice. I've been a Master Gardener for 19 years and I love it.
They're like, which is your favorite flower?
And I trial the annuals area.
First of all, if you're not a Master Gardener, you should become one because it's awesome. I'm now a Master Gardener here and in Michigan because I live there and I come back here to continue doing these. This is a fabulous program with fabulous people and a volunteer garden that is to die for. So, what about all these annuals we've trialed for many years? We started getting them in 2000, 2001 from one company, and then we had two companies for a while. Then they said, hey, we're not going to give you any more free stuff unless you do detailed evaluations on them. So in 2000, we started doing 2-hour evaluations once a month on ratings plants from a 1 to a 5. 1 is, this is pathetic or a lot died. 5 is, oh my gosh, I really need to have that next year. We also rate them on the percentage of bloom. And if they're 10% bloom or if they're almost all covered with tons of blooms, as you will see in the front. Now, that's one of the reasons I love some of their petunias. They're just great plants. There are a lot of different annuals that we try out, and we also record when things are not doing well, when they died. I just took a picture of dead plants, a couple around here. We take photos and then send it in. But here are 3 different kinds of salvias. They're all bred for a little bit different thing. This one, it will be new next year, and I will show it to you when we get over there. It's the same height as the classic Salvia Victoria Blue. This will be out next year. We really like it. It's got lots of color to it, big, full, fluffy blooms. It's called Unplugged So Blue. That's a lot to remember. It won't be on there because we haven't done our 2020 evaluations, and that we'll try to post in the fall once we're done with it. But I'll show you this one over there. So Unplugged So Blue, like the same height of Victoria Blue, only lots more bloom power. Another one that was developed is a tall version called Salvia Playing the Blues. This is the bloom from that one. Equally as fabulous. And those are in the back there behind the sunflower looking things. That is one of our most popular plants. That's actually been out for several years. It's been a gold medal winner all of the time. It's this huge, tall, Victoria Blue kind of thing on steroids. The foliage is perfect. The blooms are incredible. Everybody around here wants it. I requested we get extra of those, even though it's not a new one, it's been out before, but it is just absolutely a fabulous plant. Deer don't eat it, bunnies don't eat it. You can't, this is a great plant. And here's another one. Now this is an entirely different line. Have any of you heard of the Salvia Black and Blue? That's a cousin of this. So it's a little bit different type of plant. And we've tried a pink one, we've tried a purple one. This one will be new next year. It's called Rocking, that's a series, Rocking Blue Suede Shoes. So that company has some cute ideas about it. And there's a little bit of it on the very end here and here. Now that doesn't have as much actual bloom power, so we might not rate that as well. I like it when it's up close and you see these blooms, it's very pleasant. But I don't know if I would give this a 5. I would give Playing the Blues a 5, and I would give Unplugged So Blue over there a 5. But it's bred differently. The hummingbirds fight over these. I tried one of the pink ones from last year. It's fuchsia. It's rockin' fuchsia, and the hummingbirds are in my front door, and they're fighting over it all the time, and they're trying to get in it. So that has a big advantage. The pollinators love all of these, but particularly that one with its tubular blooms. So what else? Now, one of the handouts that you got are kind of a summary of only the gold medal winners. Those are the premium annuals we've tried. When we see plants, and I rated a 3, that means it's a nice average plant. It's a good one. But anything that gets a gold medal means that it has done really well all 4 months of the seasons for evaluations. Not a lot of them have died, probably none of them died to get a 5. And in the past, this one that I have up front, this has been out before. This is a small blooming petunia, Supertunia Hot Pink Charm. And no, those aren't huge blooms, but it's covered with blooms. You don't have to deadhead this. That's why we put it at the front of the border. Even though we've had it out before, it's magnificent. So Hot Pink Charm has been a gold medal winner for several years. Now I'm thinking a gold medal winner coming out in 2020 are going to be some of these other petunias. I am amazed at this. This is another small blooming petunia. This is called Mini Vista Indigo. And it has all these different colors. Again, you don't need to deadhead it. It just keeps spewing forth beautiful blooms. But that has been good all season. And it's a new idea for that company. Now they have petunias called the Vista series. And the most famous one is called Vista Bubblegum, which has a pink bubblegum look. Those are very vigorous. They're a 4 out of 4 on vigor. They'll get about that wide, this big, they can even mound up that high. So they will flood an area with blooms. But those are bigger blooms, and I think about anything in the Vista series of Supertunias is a green light by me. Most of them have won gold medals for that. We do have a new Vista this year, which is kind of getting hidden. It's in the back. It's the white blooming one, Snowdrift. So that's a Vista series. It's come up over, and it's starting to kind of intermix with all the rest of the plants around it. And I think that's going to be a pretty good one. I don't know if it's going to be as strong as bubblegum. Bubblegum is a smash. But I think if you wanted a white flower that is a vigorous one that can really grow, that would be an excellent choice for next year. Vista Snowdrift. It's hard to have a white petunia because a lot of times what they do is that as they age, they turn into a brown glob and they look awful. So these do not. They're crystal clear white. Even after they get beat up by rain when we get it, they still look very nice. So the Vista series are excellent. As I mentioned, the Charm series, that was Hot Pink Charm. The Charm series are usually very good also. And the only other one we've tried is there's a Mulberry Charm over there, and that isn't as delicious as these things are here. But there are 2 other petunias which I think are really pretty that will be out next year. This one is a double, and when we get away from the Vista and the Charm series, though the rest of the petunias may not be quite as full, quite as bloomerific, but it looks like these are, even though they're not a Vista or a Charm. This one is Sharon, a Supertunia Sharon. So it's got a beautiful pink and white ruffly look with a double bloom. On the other side will be a new one coming out next year. It's got that same neat fuchsia color, Raspberry Rush. It's rating very well too. I'm going to guess that may be a gold medal also. So what you're seeing up front here are just a bunch of petunias looking awesome. And that's why we planted them here, because they're a lot more striking. If we get to the other side, it's an area that we planted some plants I wasn't sure how they do in our climate. You'll see they don't do so good. Pentas, for instance, and we'll see that in a little bit. The other one I should not neglect to mention is the Euphorbia in the middle. That will be out next year too. This one is Diamond Snow. The blooms are double. They're packed with blooms. They love this hot heat. They don't care at all. You could put it in a dry area and they would do great with that. The all-time winner that started this was Euphorbia Diamond Frost. Well, they've had several other variations of that. In the past, there was a couple other euphorbias we tried. They weren't as good as Diamond Frost. I think this is. The Diamond Snow is going to be a gold medal. You just can't beat that one. Do you have questions about anything so far?
Are we going to be able to buy them easily next year?
Oh yeah. They'll be out in a lot of the stores. Now what gets frustrating with some of these places, we may see wonderful plants, but then the local nurseries decide not to grow them. They get them in as plugs, just like we do in our park and greenhouse. They come in about thumb size and we grow them, and then they sell them for a good bit of money because they're premium annuals. I'm going to imagine that all the petunias will be out next year, and the Euphorbia, I sure hope that one's out. I think I need it. Now in the back, I'm going to switch a little bit. There's the Heliopsis, and that's sun credible. What the breeders are trying to do with sunflowers is not just have one stalk and a bloom. What they are trying to do is get them so they bloom over many different stalks, so they continue to have bloom. And I know ball Horticulture had one out 2 years ago that was new. This one, Suncredible Yellow, will be out next year. And the instructions we got when we were growing it was to make sure you pinch it 2 to 3 times as the leaves grow. That makes more branching in these type of multi-bloom sunflowers, and it makes for a better plant. It's certainly a big one. I'm glad we put it in the back. Sometimes we don't always know how tall they're going to get. Many years ago when we first started, we would get in a plant thumb size, and they didn't tell us anything, what the color, the height, anything about it. So we grew one, and it turned out to be that tall. Well, I wish I would have known that when we were designing things, because it was like a big behemoth in the front. Okay, so we've got most of them. There's a lantana that has been out in the past that's called Royale Cosmo. The Royale lantanas, I think, are very nice because they maintain a nice little ball shape. A lot of lantanas are wonderful. They have a lot of blooms, but they get kind of leggy and sprawl out. But the Royale series, and that is on your list, stays compact. What else is in here? Well, we always love coleus. It seems like every coleus we try out is magnificent. Only a few don't make the gold medals. That one was out last year. It's got a little Japanese beetle damage, but that's called Golden Dreams. I think that's a little on the dry side. There's another one over here that's got a better color, chartreuse with red veinings. But it's big, huge, lush plant, and if you want to, I'll mention one more plant and then we'll go over to the other areas. I didn't want to forget the scaevola. The scaevola is one of those plants that stays in there, hangs in there with hot temperatures. If you go over to the university, they have giant planters. A lot of times they put scaevola. Scaevola, it's a fan flower is the easy name. And that means it usually has 5 petals, kind of like a little hand. This one is blue. It's an improved version of one that's been out before. If you see IMP after it on the tags, that means it's improved. And indeed it is. It's got more blooms, it's fuller and lusher. It started out very scraggly, so it's come a long ways. But these end of August containers will often have scaevola in them because they're tough and they'll take that hot heat. Another thing that's great to do besides looking in our trials area, which wraps all the way around here, is to go over to Hartley the very end of August. See what verbena are alive. A lot of them won't be. A lot of verbena this time of year with the heat will take a rest, like this one is doing here. They're not really blooming very much. The ones in the container, the ones that have been planted in a container are doing great. But in ground, it may be the shade over there too is a bit of a problem. But verbenas are a plant that, to me, there's only about 3 or 4 that I would buy, and we've trialed them in the past. Stormburst is a good verbena, Violet Ice, and Enduroscape Blue. All of those, if you like verbena, I would buy those. They're going to bloom longer into the season. This is also magnificent. This is a petunia, Blue Skies, and it came out last year, but it is as vigorous as some of the Vista series, and it's super. Now we tried Bacopa. Bacopa is an excellent plant if you keep up with the watering, and it likes it being in a container better. Another name for it, Bacopa, Sudra, they're kind of the same thing. This particular company calls it Sudra, but if you neglect to water it, it'll stop blooming for a while and then just sit there. So it's super in a container. We did try some in the ground. They're dead. We pulled them out. This one lived. There's a couple over there that lived. But I consider these a wonderful plant if you keep up with the watering. They're a little more higher maintenance in my book. The other plants that really, really need to be in a container are Calibrachoa. They're known as million bells. They look like a petunia. They're not. They're very fussy in that if you plant them in the ground, they're going to choke. They'll get scraggly. They'll get yellowish because they don't like alkaline soil. We have alkaline soil around here, so it'll tend to make them more prone to disease also. I've actually been quite surprised how well the Calibrachoa are doing this year. I tend to scoff at them. I've seen 1 or 2 do well in the ground. In the past, pomegranate punch was gorgeous, even in the ground, and makes a wonderful container. But these have been kept up quite nicely this year, so I'm quite pleased. They don't often get a gold medal for, knock your socks off kind of plant though. But I would say this compact white is an excellent one. And there's a couple over there that are doing really beautifully now too. These are the best looking pentas that we have around the garden. We got, I think, about 5 different colors in. They absolutely hate it if you get them cold. Well, what happens is the weather's nice, we've got to move things out of our greenhouse, and I think it got down to 45 or something. Was that right, Joyce? They don't like it, just like basil hates you if you put it out at 45. Basil will just kind of sit there and pout for a while. These guys are all tropical plants. They were gorgeous in the greenhouse. Then they got the wind in Illinois and the 45-degree temps, and they shut down over there. We've got like 24 of the pink and 24 of the white in that design, and they never recovered. When you see these growing in Florida, they look okay. To me, in the past, when I bought pentas in the spring at the local nurseries, it just seemed like they took forever before they started to bloom. Now, what I liked is these had blooms on them in the greenhouse, but, wait till the end of May before you plant them, maybe? I don't know. So this is the best they've looked all season. They've been somewhat miserable, and over there, very miserable still. So I don't know if I would personally buy pentas next year. But this is a new version that will be out next year. It's called Sunstar. This is the red one, and the red is looking better than just about everybody else. Here we plant the hot colors. Now, it's kind of hard to design these things. One, we never know what we're getting into the very end of March. We don't know what the plants are going to look like. We don't know what color. We have this amount of area to get an awful lot of plants in. We've started a sprinkler system this year, which we're trying to balance out, getting irrigation evenly, and that makes it more of a challenge in the design. You need the tall plants definitely in the back. We'll try to keep the hot colors here and then the blues and pastels over there. But when you design every year from a clean, flat slate with no interest except for this boxwood, it makes design a challenge. That's it. Other than that, it's all flat. So we ended up putting the Calabricoa, the Million Bells containers in the back. And if you come along here afterwards, they do have labels in them. They're all looking pretty good. One that surprised me was this compact red. So they're growing this one to be small and short. It's a beauty in here. But if you were to put it in with a sweet potato, forget it. The sweet potato will eat it. So they're kind of more delicate plants, and you want to baby them a little bit and fertilize them often. Portulaca will be out next year. This one is a red version. It's Mojave Red. We've tried other Portulaca before. They're great. They like that hot, dry. It's always hard for me to photo them because they don't open until they get real sun. So when I come real early in the morning to do aerations, they're all going, we're not opening yet. But this has been a wonderful plant. Here is the regular lantana. This will be out next year. A good plant, Golden Gate. A real nice, strong yellow color. But it's got more of that loose habit, like I was mentioning, that most lantanas do.
For the Calabricoa, you said
yes.
It's good to fertilize frequently?
Yes, fertilize frequently. They recommend a mere acid every 2 weeks. So that's a lot of upkeep in a container and all that with a regular watering schedule. Here's a coleus. This is one that will be out next year. That is Wicked Hot. And it's a really good coleus. I like the colors of its friend and neighbor on the other side, Wicked Witch. So coleus that we got new this year is the Wicked Hot and Wicked Witch. Wicked Witch, I think, stands out a little bit more because it has a serrated green edge to it. It's over in the next garden, but it's doing very well. Now, when I first started, I talked about the salvia. Look how we've got our little happy bee on it. I was petting him. This is the Unplugged So Blue, which is a fuller version of the Victoria Blue, and this has turned out an excellent plant. There are other really, really good salvias, not by this company. One is called Misty, which is a short one, M-Y-S-T-Y. And another one that I tried out just on my own, I happened to buy in a nursery, was Cathedral Blue. That is just as great as this. It doesn't have as fat of blooms as this, but if you see Cathedral Blue, that's another shorter one that's fuller and thicker than Victoria Blue. And I vote for that one also as being a good thing. Biddens, B-I-D-E-N-S. We've trialed those before, and they had one called Campfire, which was kind of tall and spindly, and we loved it at the beginning of the season. It looked magnificent in this hot colored border on that side of the Idea Garden. Well, this year they have a Campfire, and it's called Flame. It's a little bitty guy. It's nice because it maintains a nice round little thing. It's right down in here. It's getting overwhelmed by some of these. I think a better example is on the very corner of the east border there in front of the chartreuse coleus. Little round happy plant. So that's doing very well too. That's Biddens Campfire Flame. I would recommend that for next year. Gaillardias I've tried before, and I've tried them when I was doing a design in there, and I got annoyed that even though they were all American selections, I got very annoyed at them because you had to deadhead them all the time. Well, that could be a little bit of a problem with these too, although I don't mind these heads, the yellow heads of the old blooms. I don't find that unattractive. Some of the Gaillardia I've personally grown in the past, all the old blooms went to this disgusting brown, and I didn't want to mess with them. But this one is the Gaillardia Heat It Up Yellow. And that one, even the preschoolers like this best. They're like, which is your favorite flower? So the Heated Up Yellow is excellent, whereas its cousin here, Heated Up Scarlet, a lot of them are dying. It's just not as compact, it's not as full of plant. So I vote for that one, probably not this one. Now, Proven Winners this year introduced what they call Proven Harvest. They're trying to engage people to grow vegetables and edibles in the garden along with the flowers. And last year we were lucky enough to try several things that came out this year. They had two kinds of strawberries, which were neat because they had double pink or double red blooms, and little tiny alpine strawberries, which were okay. I wouldn't buy it myself. So the strawberries, I think, are a nice novelty. They were cute. We also tried out a basil last year. Magnificent. I highly recommend it. The basil is called a mazel basil, and it's on your list, because it does not get the downy mildew. I planted 6 regular basil, 5 will die, they'll get gray and die. That's downy mildew. This new one is resistant, it grows this tall, it made perfect pesto so far this year. So that one of their group I would look for, a mazel basil. Now they've had some tomatoes that we tried out last year, and we have one that we're trying out this year. I asked all the Master Gardeners, that got to taste them, would you buy this? And they go, no. They didn't think they offered anything more, the last year's one, than the tomatoes already on the market. So here's the one we're trying out. They'll be released next year. This is called Good Hearted, and it's a weird little novelty tomato too. It doesn't get more than 15 inches tall. It is studded with fruit. There's tons of them on there. People think it tastes okay. So I think it's cute. What is odd is it came out of the greenhouse with some deformed leaves. It still has them. But here it is, being highly productive with okay taste. There also, we're trialing a hot pepper called Hot and Heavy, Fire Away Hot and Heavy. And they say this is supposed to be pretty spicy, but the people that I've had try it think it's okay. It doesn't have that much zip. It's a pretty plant. It's short. There's another one that's kind of short. So this would be great for a patio container. This would be entertaining for a patio container. I actually am trialing one. My petunias are eating it. They're like 2 petunias are taking it over. And I think the taste is okay. So I don't know if I'd rush out and buy this. I always grow sun gold tomatoes, which I consider the best cherry tomato, the best tasting tomato in the world. We tried out some other ones too. Osteospermum, which tends to be a spring blooming plant, and then they go to rest. We didn't see any blooms. We had some out there. I'm not going to point them out. They're resting now, so that's disappointing. Nemesia, which also tends to be a spring bloomer, was gorgeous last month. It's doing nothing now. I kind of like my annuals to go all year, and some of these spring-only blooms don't do that well. Here's the osteospermum. It has a daisy-like thing. It is bred to do better in heat and humidity, so it's doing better, but it's not exactly full. These don't usually get a gold medal. This is osteospermum bright lights white. It looks very, very nice in the spring, and probably again when it gets cooler in the fall. I'm very disappointed by this. It's isotoma, and we've tried a blue version of them. It has delicate white or delicate little blooms. In the past we had Patty, I think it's Patty's blue. This is Patty's pink. But as you can see beneath me, at least 5 in the middle are dead. It's going to be hard to rate that highly if over half of them die. And then my huge disappointment were the pentas. There's actually a very thickly planted row of pentas here. You can't see them. They just hated that cold snap. And then there's another row there. They are only looking so-so. The Coleus Wicked Witch, I would buy that next year, the one here. And in the back are the Toucan Scarlet Cannas. They were out a couple years ago. We just used them for a backdrop, so you don't have to look at as many wheelbarrows. But in the past, that was a winner. I love the Toucan Scarlet. Thank you for coming in the heat. Anyway.